The link for the presentation is going to be up here on the board in just one second. Let me share screen too. Take a look. You are seeing my screen now. If you've seen my screen, can I just get a quick thumbs up from everyone? You're all able to hear me. Awesome. All right. My name is Pam Rabin. I am a coordinator of educational technology at the San Diego County Office of Ed. I have my director popping in today. She's going to be here the whole time. She is such a wonderful support for us. Alicia goes to every single one of these online sessions that we have, and she is amazing for doing that. Thank you, Alicia. I also have a colleague, Carrie Lane is also here. She's a project specialist in educational technology. It's good to see you here, Carrie. And I think I haven't left out any of my colleagues. Sandra Walden was with us, and now she has moved, promoted on to another job, still within San Diego County Office of Ed. But it's really nice to see you here as well today, Sandra. All right, so this is the Curious About session, and in this session, we have put out sessions on blockchain. We've put out sessions on NFTs in here, and it's really just things that we're curious about, things we're hearing about out there that sometimes have a technology spin to them and sometimes don't, but that have us talking. And so we figured if we're talking about it and we're wondering about it, then it's something other people might be wondering about as well. So the topic for today is just kind of curious about the future of education, leaning into a lot of artificial intelligence and what does that mean and what does that look like? A little on quantum computing because that does have a place, and if I'm sorry if I keep looking this way, I'm on two screens. It does have a place within the world of artificial intelligence. It's kind of an interesting thing to we're just dabbling in that today. And then really looking at as educators, what does all this mean for us? We're going to be kind of in the here and now today, and then we might go out a little ways that, is kind of going a little past where we are, think real far ahead. And as drivers of education for students, where do we need to be involved? What do we need to know? And how do we start framing this for ourselves? So just to start off, let's see, whoops, I went too far. What I'd like to do is quickly talk about some of the things that we offer as a department that are coming up. You can see them on the slide. So if you have copied the slide deck. Oh, and then Alicia, do we record these?
Yes, it's being recorded right now.
Thank you. I didn't hear your recording thing. So as a department, we have quite a few things that we are putting on for October. I think honestly the best place to see this is down here. If you click on this link, it takes you to our website. And anytime you're interested in the types of webinars like these that we might be offering to you, if you click view our events and resources, it takes you directly into this amazing page here that has our calendar of events. So along with the events that we have links for you so that you can register if you're interested. A lot of them have one registration link for the entire event. So if you know that you've already sort of signed up for our Curious About sessions, you're good to go. As you go down, you can see our whole entire year kind of scripted out here. Another place that's super helpful about this is when we do have links to videos and resources and that, you'll find them here. Another place you might look is if you scroll down, you'll see our Curious About series if you'd like to see any of the other ones that we have offered in the past. And then again, as we go down, you can see we have more information on some of the services that we offer as a department. All right. I think I just want to make a quick shout out for my colleague. Well, actually, this one's me. So it's on October 30th, we're doing AI to Go. This is just ready-made slides if you want a quick activity to do as a warm-up or a quick thinking activity for AI. That's the premise of that presentation. And then we have EdTech for Littles coming up. This would be how to use robotics and coding and computational thinking for kind of that PK 3 range. We have a Back to Basics. This class is all about learning the basics of Google. We have people who come to them again and again and again because they're wanting to hone their skills. And then, and again, pretty basic skills here if you're needing that type of support. And then my colleague Carrie Lane, who's here, is doing a presentation on accessibility and sort of AI powered access. So how is AI helping individuals who are using accessibility tools for various purposes? Okay, so our agenda today is taking a look at some of the new features of AI. So if you can use your reaction buttons on Zoom, just quick thumbs up how many of you have even heard of AI before. So and probably more. I know, like I said, I know some of you are out there driving. Please don't push reaction buttons if that's the case. Looks like we have a pretty good crowd. I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. So I have a question for you in just a minute, but we'll also talk a little around what's next for AI. What do we think as educators is important when we're thinking about using artificial intelligence with students? How quantum mechanics or quantum computing might help power some advancements that we're expecting to see in AI. And then again, like summing it all up with what is that future of education? What do we want it to be? What are our hopes? What are our fears? We have a bit of a conversation around that. All right. So my next question for you, for this, there is a QR code here, and you can go into the slide deck, and I think you can interact with this, but you might need to, if you're on your computer, you might need to go to this link here. If you have a cell phone and you'd like to interact with it that way, just pick up your cell phone and scan the QR code. It should take you immediately into this poll, and I only have one poll for you today. But I'd like to know what best fits your level of AI understanding. Like, where are you on this continuum of learning? It's A, I thought it was a rock band from the 80s. AI, I've got the basics, if that means that I'm guessing. I know AI, but I still secretly hope it's not reading this. I'm basically an AI, I'm AI's personal tutor, but I still ask ChatGPT for the answers, or I'm fluent in AI and my algorithms have algorithms. So starting with A and going to E on the serious side of E being you're really using it a lot, and A being I am completely new to this and haven't touched it at all. So I see we've got some people with the basics coming in. I see thumbs up in the chat. Thank you. I see Carrie, thank you. If you're not able to put your answers into this for any reason, I accept answers in the chat. Yeah. So this is not surprising that we're seeing people who are saying, "Hey, and I'm using it. Some of you seem like you're pretty confident with it. Maybe you're using it every day. Some people are using it more routinely. Most people that we talk to now, if I had said this back in 2023, right when ChatGPT hit the market, people would have said, yeah, I've heard about artificial intelligence, but that was something that was way out there. It was like computer science stuff, and it didn't really, even though we know now it was in our lives, we might not have really thought that it affected our lives very often. But we are seeing more and more, especially in the education world, teachers who are beginning to at least learn about it. Like you're here today learning about it, and then people who are actually starting to get their hands on it and playing with it. So thank you for polling in your responses, and just know this is what we're seeing across the county. There's a learning curve going on with it. Okay. So really, there's this notion out there that there is a intelligence revolution going on, and that it's already beginning to transform the way we think and the way we learn. We're seeing it in schools. This could be good, it could be bad. Teachers often worry about what are the cognitive implications if students are using AI and they are not engaging with content in a deep way? Am I having the AI do my thinking for me? I was out at a school today, and these kinds of questions were coming up with students as well. We were talking to students about what they know about AI and what their concerns are. And I was really surprised, out of a group of about 40 students, one of their biggest thoughts and concerns at that moment, so I can't say in general, was just what happens if artificial intelligence becomes so powerful that it surpasses our intelligence and then we're not needed anymore? And this was a question kids were asking, and I know that teachers ask this as well. So, as educators, part of our job is to have these conversations with students. And by having conversations like this today, we're engaging in really thinking around what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to engage with artificial intelligence? Where is it important? How are we using it? Um, and as we're dappling in it, are we remembering the pedagogy, the things we all know about good teaching? All right. So I'm just looking to see if anyone, any comments or any things in the chat before we move on. Ways you've seen it. Does anyone have a favorite tool out there? Okay. I'm getting some Claude AI notebook. So Matt, yes, we're talking about that today. Brisk, definitely. A lot of teachers are using that. I just heard Perplexity is they just made a partnership and they're planning on doing integrating a lot more into that. Conmingo, Magic School, these are definitely things we're hearing about now. ChatGPT. Mhm. I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. Magic School, teachers are adopting that right and left in their classrooms, and Sora is really interesting. Okay, well, hopefully I show you some new things because we are seeing teachers begin to adapt it. So, a lot of teachers have gotten in, they've played around with these large language models. And you may understand how large language models work in that they are taking these data sets that they are programmed with, and they're sort of taking an average of the information that they have access to, right? They're using algorithmic thinking and like sort of predictive logic to take information and predict what would be the average of all of these resources. Um, we're seeing that now becoming more and more integrated into tools that we already use. So a lot of those Magic School's kind of on its side, its own entity. So a lot of these large language models are, but we're seeing new things beginning to be built on top of the ChatGPT, the Gemini, these large language models that in order to use them, you have to have a lot of supercomputing to do that. So a lot of companies are beginning to build on top of them. And what does that mean? So I wanted for those of you, there were a few people who maybe aren't as familiar with some different tools to kind of look at this. This is just one good example. Padlet has been out there forever. It's a tool many teachers use. And I think when Flipgrid came out and when Jamboard came out, a lot of people moved away from Padlet. But I've kind of moved back to it with those two apps sort of being moved off to the side now. If you scan this QR code, it will take you into a Padlet that I have. And it's interesting to see some of the new tools that are being integrated into it. So you can scan this QR code, and I'll just put it up there kind of big for everyone right now with your cell phone again. And the QR code will take you, you should not have to make an account, directly into my Padlet. And then when I put it down, you should still see it for a little while. But I'm going to give us everyone a second to kind of pull out a phone if you'd like to. Um, yeah, so the link, sorry, let's see. It is right up here. You can go to bit.ly/capital I, capital AI, and then underscore faves. So it's kind of tiny right there, but that is the bit.ly. And if you're new to Padlet, somewhere in your app or on your computer screen, there's a button. It's a yellow plus button down in the lower right-hand corner. If you click on that, or if you're on a computer, you can double click anywhere on the screen. But the plus button, if you're on an app, it will bring up a little box. You can put your name in the subject when I'm working with students and I just want to do something quick. I usually have them do that. So I'll put my name up here, just my first name. And then if you click on the +12 button, you can see all of the different types of interactions that Padlet is allowing now. And what's really interesting is they've included some of these new features here. So for the longest time, it was just sort of a text, and then eventually they added camera and they added video. And now they're beginning to integrate some AI tools into here as well. So just for example, if you click on I can't draw, then what your challenge is now is in the button when it says what, write what you want to draw. Up here in the corner, I put in your favorite animal, time of day, food, and hobby. So for me, it's going to be Shih Tzu, um, sunset, pizza, and swimming in the ocean. And then I'm going to click on the arrow over here and submit. It's going to take a while because the generative AI is coming up with the picture. And it's giving me an option of pictures that it has generated. But as you can see, it's got all my requirements in there. Actually, this one kind of looks like my dog. And I can click on that and I can share by publishing. So if you would like to add yours in, I can see people are working on it. Laura, you like nighttime beagles. I'm not sure what your hobby is. Hmm. I see someone likes porpoises. Thank you, Jessica. Basketball, pizza? Okay, Laura. No worries. I think you can edit it, but I'm not sure how that works with the AI. Okay, we got somebody who likes tennis and sunset as well. A lot of dog people out there. So I'll give you just a few more minutes here. But as you can see, um, this is just a quick kind of example of integrated AI, but it gives students and teachers some new tools, some new ways of expressing themselves. It brings into question a little bit about, learning art and artistic expression. So then as that kind of pedagogy expert, we're beginning to think to ourselves, um, when is this generating art AI good for our students? If it's something quick, if it allows them to express themselves, then that might be a time to use it. We're really balancing that notion of do we need AI? What are we using it for? And how is it helping students? In this case, we are helping each other get to know one another. It's kind of a fun activity. If I was going to ask my students to do drawing on their own, then that's where I might start working around. Let's go back to our human talents and pull out pencil paper and do some interaction that way. You click on the plus 12, sorry. Yeah, so if you click on the plus down below, and then you see it says plus 12, it's kind of the more function, more attachments. And once you get in there, you click on I can't draw. So a nice thing about Padlet again is it just sort of gives you this. For Padlet, it is premium if you want more than three, but you can always have three with them, and you just sort of when I've used it, once I have something like this, if I want to keep it, one of the functions that you can do in sharing is to print it as a PDF. So if I clicked on export, I could have all of these images as a PDF and then just clear it out for my next group. So you can use it just as sort of an ongoing board, and they allow you three under the free version. Okay, got it. All right. So that again is just one notion, and we are seeing, what's one trend in AI? More and more of the tools that you usually have used in the past that you have already thought around pedagogy, like why am I using this tool? This has always been the age-old discussion in ed tech. Why, you're choosing a tool. Are you choosing a tool for a tool's sake, or are we choosing tools because of what we can have students do with them, how it forces their learning into deeper areas, or how it helps them make connections, things like along those lines. So with the AI, while the tools are fun and while we can kind of get really bogged down into this tool and that tool and this integration, um, always keep in mind, and you're going to hear me say that again and again, as educators, why are we using it? How is it driving learning? All right. So, the next thing I wanted to show you was just another tool. This isn't really hitting schools yet, although I think it's interesting. I know a few of you said you had seen it. It is a Google product, and I know even on my work computer, it is not open. So when you see me do this, I am pulling it from my personal account, but Notebook LM is part of Google's experimental um, applications. So if you look up Google Labs, and this picture actually does link. Sorry, I don't have an actual link to it because I have to pull it up to my, like if you click on the picture, it'll give you a link. But my school is going to say it's blocked once I try logging in. So I'm going to pull over my private account over here and give you kind of this is more of a demo. You can go in there and play with it if you want to, of what Notebook LM does. So I have a little backstory to go along with this. My journey in school started with not being a particular fluent reader in elementary school. I did not start reading fluently till I was in seventh grade. And all through college, all through my school journey, I struggled with reading and I struggled with comprehension. I eventually became fluent and I became someone who could comprehend text. I am super slow at it, and sometimes I find myself like struggling to keep up with the content while I'm trying to read it. So when I found this, I found it very interesting. So what I want to kind of put the caveat out there that I am not saying we shouldn't learn how to read, and I'm not saying reading the full article is not important. What Notebook LM does for you is it allows you to upload PDFs of anything, articles, any kind of thing you might need to read, and you put them in. So this is just an example over here. I only took one article. I have done this before where I've put in many, many, many articles. For this one, I took one article on agenic engagement through pedagogical partnerships. Just a light read. And it will take this article, put it into an AI, and then you have these options for what you want to do with it. I'm going to start just by showing you. It summarizes the article for you and kind of pulls up keywords in the article, get highlighted or put in bold. It can give you some questions. And so, this is interesting on two levels. It's interesting as, yes, so someone's letting you know, yes, you must use this privately. In that, yeah, this is my private account. My school account is not allowing me to use it. But I wanted to show it to you because I think, again, it's something you as a teacher might use to prepare for reading an article with your student because it gives you some information. For students right now, again, it's not necessarily something that's open to them. That's districts will decide what they want to do with it. And with anything that's Google Labs, I'm always cautious because it could be there and then they might take it away. So it's something I would look at, and it's an interesting lean into what AI can do in the education space. But again, the caveat with using it with students right now is that it might not be open to them. It summarizes the article. It can take, it will give you a list of frequently asked questions on the article. And so that's what I have. I think it's over here. So it's given me a list of questions that people might need understandings about. It has the ability to give you a study guide. So that might be right here. It gives me my own quiz. It's giving me some answer keys, essay questions, just things that I might use with it. I have the ability to come up with a table of contents so that I know what the article has embedded within it. It gives me a timeline of different events that might be happening in there. So it's not necessarily a timeline of the article, but if there's any historical content, it will put that into a timeline for me. And then the thing that I found the most interesting about it that I'm just going to push the play button on, and I am hoping you can hear it. If not, let me know, just thumbs up or thumbs down. I didn't see a button when I shared my screen, and I have a headset on, so I'm a little worried you might not be able to hear it, but let me click it, and I'll just let you see what it's doing.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep
Are you
Dive.
able to hear
Today
it?
we're
Or am I the only one hearing it? You're hearing it. Okay, good. What are
Welcome
you
back, everyone, to the
hearing?
deep dive. Today, we're tackling a topic that I think is really relevant for anyone who's ever felt like they wanted more, say, in their own education.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, who hasn't felt that way at some point?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're diving into this concept called agenic engagement, and we've got a really interesting academic journal article to guide our discussion.
It lays out the theory and the research behind this approach, which is gaining a lot of traction in education these days.
Plus, we'll be hearing reflections from two former students who actually lived this experience, Samantha Allard and Alina Markovici.
Yeah.
Okay. So thoughts. Thoughts on that. It made a podcast. These two people do not exist. This is artificial intelligence sounding like human beings, and my brain doesn't want to process that. I actually have never heard more than the two voices, so I'm now wanting to go through. I'm seeing wow and interesting. Yes, right? A little scary. Yes. And you change the accents and the speeds. So I have this ability right here to change the playback speed. So for me, I'm weird. I like to speed that sucker up to pretty fast because it helps me get through articles sometimes to be able to play it back to myself and hear it very quickly. You can download the podcast. That means you can share it in different formats. So you get an MP3 that way. So again, I was saying this could help you as a teacher to prepare for your students and possibly have this, once you've read the article, because again, I'm not saying reading is not important, but having the podcast now of the article could be another modality for students to listen to it. So, and it just generated that. And this program currently is free as you just sign in with your personal Google account, put in an article. You can put in more than one article and it will summarize it. The caveat there is it may not always know how you want it to be summarized. Someone's asking if you can do it in another language. That I don't know. I'd have to look that up to be honest, but that would be interesting because I know Google has a lot of looking around here to see that does have that translation ability. I'm not seeing it in the controls right now. So I see playback speed and downloading. But again, this is kind of that look at, we had, I'm going to push this back over here with, this model with Padlet, you have students being able to see things in a visual format. With Notebook LM, you have students now being able to see things in, or listen to things with auditory or with some supports. So that's kind of that notion of what's the future of AI in terms of teaching. We're going back to the pedagogical approaches that we know are good. We have universal design for learning. We have students who have different learning modalities. And if we can get content to them in different formats easily, then that is a benefit to our students. Again, we're not wanting to neglect the basics, but we always are concerned with progress. And if we have students that are struggling to read, struggling to write, and they can get the content through other means, then they can be on that reading and writing journey. We're still helping them with that, but then we can ensure that hopefully they're keeping up with that content knowledge, that the underlying knowledge that's actually going to help them also to be able to do the comprehension and to be able to do the reading because they're not not understanding that and trying to decode and trying to make sense of texts. So the next thing that I am sharing is just the chat GPTs again. So let me go back to my presentation here and I'll take you to that next page. So again, just a quick, I'm calling it a demo, but if you go into chat GPT yourself and you sign in, I did it on my personal account just because it was quicker and easier for me to manage it for this. But one of the areas that you can look into, if you're on this side menu over here, it says Explore GPTs. So when ChatGPT first came out, all they had was ChatGPT, and you opened it up and you asked it questions. And a lot of people started talking about prompts, and they started talking about, how do you get the GPT to really hone in on what you want it to give to you? So people began pre-prompting, and really Magic School is just a whole bunch of pre-prompted options for you. So is this kind of the GPTs area you're seeing. So we have Code Tutor, this is through Conmingo. If you click on it, it's going to really focus in on how do I help you to learn coding? Not do it for you necessarily, but how do I sit down with you as an AI and walk you through or explain to you what is happening in coding? As we go down a little further, you see we've got image generators. Some of these exist within the GPT itself, and some of them are sort of will take you out to Canva or will, want you to log in to other entities that have partnered with ChatGPT, but they're all found in this one place. So I just kind of wanted to scroll down, and I don't have too much time to put in here. One of the things teachers worry about, and I just wanted to also call this out to your attention, is how do I know if students are cheating? Like, what are these AI detectors out there? And all I'm going to say is you got to know your students, because look what's in here as well. Right for me, AI humanizer. So, yay. Not. We got three different humanizers. So basically what that's doing is theoretically, a student could have ChatGPT or some other AI write their paper for them, throw it into here, and they're trying to make it so that it can't be flagged for detection. So large discussions right now are happening on what do we do about students cheating? And we always say it's about the pedagogy. It's about how you know your students. You have transparency on when we're using AI. You have conversations around AI, because there's no easy fix. There's no putting it into a detector and it gets flagged, and knowing two things: that flag means something that is real, because sometimes it flags things that it shouldn't, and that anything you're reading is not ChatGPT at this point. So again, it's we're thinking pedagogically now. How do we break up assignments? How do we have students talking in class? When you're playing with these tools, balance the human back in. That social interactive part of learning is super important. The conversations you have around math in class, where you're hearing them, and by conversations, I mean student to student, student to teacher, in small groups, as whole class, so that you are hearing what they're thinking. Handwritten things are good, typed out things are good. It's got to be that balance of the pedagogy. All right. And I do stop here in a minute and kind of let us talk about these things, but I want to make sure I go on. Another thing I wanted to show you really quickly, so I'm going to stop sharing for a second here and put myself out here, is if you haven't seen this yet with ChatGPT, I find it fascinating, but I'm going to put this, I have ChatGPT as an app on my phone. So that is another way that people are interacting with ChatGPT. So if you come in here, there's a little button that you can push now. Make sure I have my volume up here. And we're just going to say hello to my ChatGPT. It's a female voice. Hello, can you talk to some people that I am having a webinar with right now?
Can't join the webinar or talk to people directly, but if you need help with information or crafting messages for your webinar, I'm here to help. What do you need?
Well, I'm just wondering, they can hear you right now, so can you say hello out loud?
To help with any questions or information you might need during the webinar. Let's have a great session.
So would you be able to give us an idea of a place that we could stop in San Diego that would be interesting for students and allows them to learn about fish?
Absolutely. A great place to visit in San Diego for learning about fish is the Birch Aquarium at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. It offers interactive exhibits, a stunning view of marine
All right,
life,
thank
and
you.
education.
I feel bad being rude to my ChatGPT person, but so you can see, like, on the computer, you can't have that kind of conversation, but on your phone now, he sounds real. It's kind of like the Notebook LM. We can have a conversation. It's still AI weird, There are times where they're actually very chatty. They will interrupt you. Not quite, if you hesitate for a minute. But you can see too, they put in, you'll hear them say that every now and then. They've put in pauses and the tone and everything sounds pretty real. All right. Let me share my screen again. Okay, so yeah, ChatGPT has come a long way since 2023. Okay. So the last thing I want to show you, and I'm kind of not saying, yeah, I'm doing okay on time. I get a little behind. But if you go there, AI is interesting, and where we see it evolving is especially in education, this notion of being like a tutor or like an expert that you can sit down with and talk to, right? Or have a conversation through typing. The way we teach students when we're working with them to think about it is if I was sitting down with my parent, would I want my mom to be doing all of my work for me? And would I be learning if I was doing that? So I could sit down with people I know are experts in certain areas or who have skills in certain areas, and I can learn from them. I can sit down with the teacher, I can sit down with the parent, and I can learn something from them. So if we think of GPTs in that way with students, it begins to help them conceive of like, what's the role of it? It's not a substitute for human interaction, but if you're working on a project and you're at home, and this is where I think students might feel the temptation to just have it do it for them. If we can have conversations with students and say, think of this as a tutor. Think of how can you have a conversation with it to get what you need, to understand something and move on and do your own thinking. An interesting other tool I wanted to show you is called PlayLab AI. And for the purposes of today's activity, I just wanted you to go in and see what's possible in this app. Now, this app is not premium yet, but if you go to join, you have to join a wait list, and it can take a little time sometimes before they let you in. What they allow you to do is create your own chatbot. Now, Magic School does this as well. This one is just a nice interface, and I think it's a pretty friendly way to do it. But if you click on that or you go to PlayLab AI, playlab.ai/explore, it takes you into this area. And these are all kind of chatbots that other teachers have created and have been working on and are experimenting with. And I think that that's PlayLab's best way of kind of knowing what teachers are interested in, to be honest. But they've created their own chatbots, and you can click on these while we're looking at them. Feel free if you're at your desk right now. But what I wanted to show you is if I go into my apps or my activities, let me see. I guess I want to go into my apps. I can show you kind of the back end of this. So one of the things we do at the Learning and Innovation Center here in Linda Vista is we have students come in and they do design thinking with us. And one of those labs has to do with creating sustainable solutions for flooding in San Diego. So they're building it with cardboard and those kinds of things, and sometimes with Minecraft. But we wanted them to be able to kind of get that empathy part of it. And so we built in 4 user profiles, and we let them talk to those users. And what was interesting was on the back side of this, we can add to it. We can continue to build on what we want the GPT to do. So on this side, we sort of have what the experience looks like on the user end. And on this side, what I wanted to show you is there's no programming in it, right? It's all text, and it's all very much giving the GPT a background. Hey, you're taking on the role of a particular user. I'm going to upload information about these different people that I kind of want you to think about. And so I've got Sophia, I've got Pedro, I've got Ido, I've got Arnell. And so I start setting all those parameters, and the GPT stays within that box for the most part. But then I realized quickly I had to put in some kind of conversational rules. I wanted the GPT to be kind to students. I wanted it to keep the responses short. I wanted them not to give solutions to the students because they're here to think of their own solutions to these problems. But I wanted them to ask questions of the students. I discovered quickly that I also had to put in some stipulations here, like um, if a student asks or says anything considered inappropriate by most people, especially for school age students, it's okay to respond as an adult might by gently calling out the inappropriate behavior. And then I basically say if they continue, then you can just stop the interview altogether and say, hey, I think you need to go talk to your teacher. And I found that that actually happened maybe once, and then the students, they go back in and they have to start from the beginning. And so it kind of ends those conversations quickly. But the idea here is that as teachers, we can kind of create some of these um, experiences for students, and Play Labs is one area that they're allowing us to have that ability to do it. Okay. So before I move on, some of the big ideas here and the advancements of AI and kind of moving into our more immediate future would be looking at the different ways that AI is entering into our school systems, kind of remembering back to when we had a lot of technology tools in general entering into them. And what were we saying back then? We were saying, is it the tool or is it the outcome that we're focused on? And that's very much the same when it comes to AI. The outcomes are now a little, we're raising the bar in terms of what the abuses could be with it or what the concerns are with it. But it's still that idea. If I'm going to use it as a teacher, I need to be really thinking around the pedagogy of it. But if I'm also not using it as a teacher, then what kind of disservice might I be doing for my students? What am I not preparing them for? That they would graduate from my school maybe and then go on to another place where they are suddenly allowed to use it and maybe don't know um, ways of interacting with it, don't understand expectations from people around transparency, and find themselves in an environment of now starting to learn when maybe other students have been doing it for several years. So I wanted to stop here and just kind of take a thought break and see if there's anyone who, wants to unmic and just tell us what your thoughts on it. Sort of, again, are we getting away from discussions that focus on good teaching when we are so hyper-focused on the AI and the tools? So where do the human-centered approaches exist and just what your thoughts are on that? So if you'd like to unmute, go, feel free. Or you could put it in the chat. All right. So I'm getting the feeling that I can go ahead and move on. Thumbs up if you're ready to move on.
I had a
Oh yeah,
question. Yeah,
go
this
for
is
it.
Andrew here. Now, I've been looking around and investigating and landed on like Conmigo
Hmm.
and how they have a collaboration with Mr. Altman and OpenAI. Now, would you consider Conmigo like a leader in this area that you're talking about?
So what I would say about Conmigo is they definitely have embraced that idea of using it as, AI as a tutor. And they are offering a lot of supports and a lot of tools toward that end. And I think that that's what they're known for in the industry. In my world too, like when Khan Academy in general came out, my concern was always just is do we want to have students in front of a computer learning and not interacting with other students? It just depends on the model and how you use it, if that makes sense. But yes, I think, Khan Academy is definitely one of the ones that has really embraced it and is using the GPT not just for math. I understand that you can use it for other things, but is also thinking like, how can we use this as a tool that can help students versus just kind of putting them out there in the wild, wild west?
Right, because they've been in the education field for a long time, right?
Mhm.
And according to his book, I just started reading his book. Actually, Altman and Brockman, the founders of OpenAI, they actually approached Mr. Khan
Mhm.
and asked to collaborate with him. So, yeah, I was just wondering how far along, they seem to be very broad-minded in their approach.
Yeah, and I think I'll say too, and I'm not opposed to Conmingo or any of those. I think they definitely have a place. And again, I find it up to teachers to then decide what does that mean. I mean, I've seen there's a school in Texas where, and you can look that up. It's NBC. If you look up NBC Texas AI, you'll find the school. Where they say they no longer need teachers because their students do an online AI assisted personalized platform for 2 hours a day, and then the rest of the time they're doing other things. And I think for their model, and it's a private school, it's very affluent. I think it's $40,000 a year tuition. It might work for them, but is that really, a model that's going to work for everybody? And those are issues that educators are grappling with as we bring these tools in. Again, is what, where's the human connection in it? So if I'm using Conmingo and my students are in there and they get the support from time to time that they need, and then we are having conversations and we're doing hands-on studies, and then within that larger field of pedagogy that becomes supportive, then that's the good part, right? But if I'm a teacher and I'm sitting a student down in front of a computer, isolating them from any kind of human contact, they may excel at what they're doing in math. That might be something that they really enjoy, but are they getting ready for a job market where they're going to be asked to work with people, to be problem solvers, to learn, to know how to teach themselves to learn and unlearn and recognize a pathway. So one of the things about online computers, when they're picking and choosing your pathway for you, how much agency, that's my question, is how much agency do you have in that? How much decision making are you actually the driver of your own education? Again, these are all questions I'm throwing out there.
Right.
So I don't have
Yeah.
perfect answers for that.
Yeah,
Uh,
Mr. Khan is quick to say that he doesn't believe that teachers will ever be replaced
yeah,
by
exactly.
AI. Yeah.
And there's that human element, right?
Right.
So we see it when you see a face on AI and you don't know where that picture came from, then you learn it's completely generated. There's a part of your brain that wants it to be human, right? We are intrinsically people who seek social contacts. I'm going to move on though, because I got a lot to get through still, and I see we
Thank
have
you.
about
Thank
10
you.
minutes. You're welcome. All right, so what's new with the AI in the industry? I just wanted to show kind of some examples of two major industries and give ideas of how is AI assisting these industries, because again, I'm going to argue for reasons why we want students to be interacting with AI. It is part of that job market that they're going into. So just really quickly, there's a company in biotech called AlphaFold. They just won the Nobel Prize. And this chart is interesting because there was a competition for biotech companies to come up with a model using computers that could predict structures of proteins. And I know the proteins are involved in understanding diseases. Trying to create drugs, trying to create vaccines. And if you look at the chart all the way up through CASP 11, I think that was right around 2014, they were making progress. And this was before AI came out. And at that moment around CASP 11, between CASP 12, 13, 14, this is when the large language models started to hit. And AlphaFold was able to take a vast amount of data, put it into the algorithm, and you can see all of a sudden the predictability just skyrockets. And they are using their model now. They made it open, anyone can use it. And there are huge advancements in biotechnology that are occurring because they can predict a very accurate model of what these protein structures look like. And that is AI driven. I'm going to go on to the next one. There's an article linked down there if you're interested in finding out more about that. Another way that we see AI being used in an industry, and energy industry is a large industry in San Diego as well, is in helping us to look at our energy usage, to look at the mix of energies and fuels that we're using. So companies are being able to not only reduce their carbon emissions, but they can forecast energy markets. So if they know, over time in certain months, we use a lot of solar energy, they can anticipate that, they can they can enter into contracts, they can do forecasting of when they might need to ramp up other fuels, in certain times of year we are not going to have as much solar power, and then what that efficient mix of renewables might be to allow us to reach goals that we have for, I think it's 2030 in terms of getting to net zero. AI is helping us to optimize these operations. And you can kind of see on the chart here, I'll flip back and forth. This is January to June, just the difference in the mix of energies that we use. So that was kind of interesting that AI is helping us to do that. On the flip side of that, using AI, so I'm kind of getting into the limitations of AI right now, and we're going to start getting to that notion of quantum computing and how it's going to help AI. Google, Amazon, Microsoft, since starting in the large language model field, their energy use has gone up 48% for Google, 60% for Amazon, and it just fell a little bit this year, and then 60% for Microsoft. So they are all very concerned about the fact that they are driving huge amounts of energy consumption to use these models because their models use traditional computing. That means that they are cranking out algorithms constantly, lots of them, to try and get the information quickly to people. And imagine those vast data sets. It goes through every single one of those articles and those things that it's looking at, right? We don't realize how fast it's doing it, but it is, and it's doing it like one process at a time. It's got to go through a whole article. It's got to go through another article. It's got to go through another article and find the commonalities as it's generating. So it just is an interesting side note that one of the limitations is the energy costs and production of these large language models, to the extent that these companies have just gone into contracts with different companies that are investing in small modular nuclear reactors. So we're looking at clean energy. They're wanting to take the type of energy that is powering these and offset it. But it is interesting that we're now back to, hey, let's look at nuclear energy as a way to power AI. So there are some limits with AI that are interesting. And now I'm extrapolating way out into the future here. So just stay with me for a moment. So we just said the way AI computes uses a lot of energy, right? 2 years ago, a large language model might have done that 50 to 70 billion parameters, and now we're up to trillions of parameters. And imagine all that cranking through our systems, and then you throw in blockchain and you throw in other things. That's a lot of energy and a lot of environmental impacts, right? So people are very cognizant of that. The other thing that is a limitation is technologies, as you know, it's like there's some law out there, I can't remember the guy's name, but it basically that you can double the number of transistors, and you can get smaller and smaller and smaller every year, and it was exponential until basically we're going to get to a point when the transistors are so small that they are now getting into the atomic level of being super small. And when they get into that atomic level, electrons don't play nicely. So you can only get so much smaller and create so many resistors before things don't quite work. And then you max out on the number of computer parts, so to speak, that you can have. So scientists are really thinking around, are we going to get smaller? Are we going to take up more land for all these processing computers and things like that? What would that look like? And the only alternatives then are to think of, okay, how can we get more processing power down into that atomic level? And this is where quantum computing starts to come in. So what is it that quantum computing can do? And I got just enough time to show you this video, and I think that's where I might have to leave. But she does such a good job of explaining quantum computing. I wasn't even going to try. Let's listen real quick. It's about 3 minutes.
Quantum scientist Olivia Lanes is showing me IBM's newest experimental machine.
This big shiny behemoth is IBM Quantum System 2.
Sounds like it's on. What is the big deal though? I mean, why not just build an ordinary supercomputer?
It's a totally different avenue. It's not just supercomputers, but better, or AI, but more powerful. It's an entirely different way of computing.
The big difference is the computer's ability to harness the mysterious effects of quantum physics. Standard computers, they calculate by using billions of tiny little on and off switches known as bits. Now, these things, they're very reliable, they're very accurate, and they work together in sequence. So, if you ask a standard computer to solve a maze, it will do so by checking through every possible path one by one until it finds a solution. Now, depending on the size of the maze, that could take seconds or minutes, or potentially, for a really big maze, even years. A quantum computer, on the other hand, works a little bit differently. There, the bits are known as quantum bits, or qubits, and rather than just being on or off, a qubit can be held in something called a superposition, where it can be both on and off at the same time. Now, okay, I know that doesn't really make a lot of sense, but unfortunately that is just how physics works down at the atomic level, so go with me. This bizarre ability of a qubit to be in two states at once means that a series of qubits can solve lots of calculations simultaneously. And so, if you ask a quantum computer to solve a maze, it means it can consider all possible routes at once, giving you the answer in an instant.
Okay, so that's the important notion for us. With quantum computing, it is a completely different way of looking at computing. It's at the atomic level, and in fact, qubits are actually electrons. They can be with computing, you have two states, on or off. They can be in sort of on. It's like a sliding, you have an on-off switch for your lights, but some of you have a slider on it. It's sort of that sliding state. And so where you might have two qubits or two bits of information, you can have 4 qubits. And then that goes exponentially again. So if you've got 4 bits on a traditional computing model, now you've got 8 in quantum computing. So the amount of processing power you have is a lot more. But then what she also said was it processes all of the answers simultaneously. So it's not going through one at a time. And where this really makes sense is if you think of models where they're trying to decode or you're trying to break the code on a passcode, and they tell you always make a really good passcode because it'll take 1,000,000 years for a computer to go through all the possibilities to get to your passcode. Well, imagine it just goes through all of them. It can do all of them. It doesn't have to do one at a time. It does all of them, and it finds the right one at the same time. That's quantum computing, and that's why it's powerful, and it will power AI like nobody's business. Someday, if we can get some of the stability that it needs, it has to be super cooled now to keep the electrons kind of acting right. But once they figure that out, we have this ability, which has huge implications for national security, but it also has huge implications for the potential of any kind of computer processing power that we can continue to grow. Another problem with AI, though, also is because it's fed on data, there could be data scarcity at some point. Like once you put all the data you possibly have in there, it can't create new data. We create the new data, and it looks at it. It generates an average of the data that we've programmed it on. But at this point in time, it's not going out there and saying, I'm going to go explore and do my own research and find something new and make connections to come up with completely new information. Quantum computing actually has that ability because it can check all possible models again at the same time. So parallel processing means significantly less energy because it doesn't have to crank around 1,000,000 iterations of what it's trying to figure out. And it means increased processing power. What could take supercomputers like 1,000,000 of years to crack high security passwords, quantum computers can take seconds. So as I'm finishing up, this is my last thought for you today. when we talk with students in this world of AI, we really have this notion of technologies and tools, and we can get into the importance of using the tools. We can get into the importance of needing to have your hands on AI because job markets out there are looking for people who can do that. And we can talk about like computer science programs and CTE, and all of those are important, but I don't want us to lose that human in the mix, the people skills, because the jobs of the future, yes, are looking for all these STEM people, but they are also looking for cognitive skills, creative, analytical, um, the ability to collaborate with people, the ability to understand the human condition, how to learn and unlearn, because that's going to become more and more important if jobs are flexing due to AI, maybe taking um, the heavy lifting of more routine function type jobs, right? So in that, I say my argument to you all today is, as teachers, we need to be up on this because we're also helping to drive that future of what education looks like. And if we kind of kick back and say, I'm going to let the AI do everything for me, are we then saying that we're not needed in that profession? So in learning AI yourself and dappling with it and teaching your students about it, you're also saying, I'm in here. I'm important. And I think being that human connection is important to AI. So I'm 4 minutes over. Thank you all for those of you who stuck around. I really appreciate you being here. I'm just going to end with my thank you and say, hey, join us for our next Curious About. I hope you got some interesting ideas and thoughts. And I know I didn't